Okay. You can see the attendees going up and up and up. We'll just get started in a minute, everyone. I want everyone to be able to file in first, and then we'll get going. Claire, are you seeing just the first slide? Yeah.
Yes, I am seeing the first slide.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm not sharing the wrong screen. Okay. So I think we'll get started now. I think we've got pretty steady numbers here. I'm sure more people will file in, but we are on for 45 minutes and Claire is here for 30 of those. So we'll get going. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Krista Pluis. I'm the head of marketing at Citron Hygiene. Some of you will be customers of ours already, I think. Some of you probably aren't. Today, we're going to be talking about the Labor Code Amendment in Canada, what that means for federally regulated businesses and government organizations, how to scale your period product programs and menstrual waste disposal. And we have two expert panelists with us here. We have Claire Coder from AntFlow and Rachel Ettinger from Here for Her, and a Canadian activist for menstrual equity. So we'll get going on, first, I'll just go through the agenda and then I'll let Claire and Rachel say a little bit about themselves. We're going to go through what the actual labor code changes are, where you can find more information on that. Rachel's going to talk about the advocacy that led to the legislation and sort of specific points of the legislation and what it means. Claire has ample experience helping states in the US roll out prevent programs, particularly in schools and different government institutions. So she's going to lend her expertise on that. And I will talk about menstrual waste disposal, and then we'll go into some questions in the final 10 to 15 minutes. So with that, Claire, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Wonderful. Great to see everyone today. Krista, delighted to be here. My name is Claire Coder, and I'm the founder and CEO of AntFlow. I founded AntFlow 8 years ago after attending an event, starting my period unexpectedly at the event, going to the bathroom and finding a coin-operated tampon and pad dispenser. In these moments of despair, I thought, wow, who the heck carries quarters or coins? And also, if toilet paper is offered at no cost in washrooms, why aren't period products? That has led me on this wild journey to build what is now known as AntFlow, that is proud to stock over 38,000 bathrooms with our patented dispensers and organic cotton period products. And we are proud to be partners with Citron Hygiene to be implementing across Canada as well. Rachel, passing it to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, my name is Rachel Ettinger. My pronouns are she, her. I'm actually a former morning radio host with Virgin Radio. I'm the founder of Here for Her and an activist in the menstrual equity space. It's really exciting because I've been a part of many menstrual equity initiatives, from providing free menstrual products in public washrooms from the school board level to municipalities, universities, colleges, and then recently played a key role in obviously this federal policy, which is now being rolled out, which is really exciting. So we're going to chat a little bit more about how this amendment came to be, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you both. So before we get into the sort of advocacy and legislation, you've probably all seen this by now. I will be doing a follow-up email with resources and a guide that we put together for all registrants and attendees of this webinar. So because there are different occupational health and safety amendments depending on industry, so for example, I believe fisheries has their own one, onboard trains has their own. They're all roughly the same and say similar things, but they're worded slightly differently depending on sort of the environment that they're meant for. But in general, under the amended labor code, employers are now required to provide menstrual products, including clean and hygienic tampons and menstrual pads in each toilet room. That means every washroom on the premises. If this is not possible, the employer must still provide them in the workplace in a way that allows employees to access menstrual products freely and privately, and covered containers for the disposal of menstrual products. These are required to be placed in any toilet room that has only one toilet. So that covers sort of your accessible washrooms, family washrooms, and in each toilet compartment, i.e. stall, in any toilet room that has more than one toilet. So that's your general high traffic washroom. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and Rachel is going to talk about, if I can figure out how to, there we go. Rachel's going to go into the legislation that led to this and what we mean by all washrooms and why.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of get into it. So hopefully if you have to take some notes, please do. And obviously happy to answer questions at the end. So long story short, let's start with where did these regulations come from? So I can give you kind of the high level Coles Notes version. So for years, advocates have lobbied for free menstrual products in businesses, in schools, and with different levels of government. In 2019, the federal government organized kind of a first round of consultation about what it would look like to provide free menstrual products in federally regulated workspaces. Nothing came out of it. There didn't seem to be a lot of interest, to be honest, and it kind of faded away. So at the same time, many municipalities were jumping on and putting menstrual equity initiatives in place. Notably, London, Ontario was the first city in Canada to do this. And the province of BC was actually the first to roll it out in schools. So the hype is it's starting to happen. We're seeing a bit of a domino effect. But from a federal perspective, we were a little unsure. So in 2020, I launched a petition. It was backed by a Liberal MP, Peter Fregastatos, and so many advocates, brands, organizations all jumped on board to support. We got over 2,000 signatures. And this is when we kind of were holding the feds accountable for their promises regarding menstrual equity and acknowledging it at the federal level. So from there, we've had, many discussions with the Minister of Labor over the years. There's been different people in that role. Was this pressure kind of on the federal government from other provinces and municipalities that are jumping on board, as well as, pressure, but also as us advocates really helping to educate leaders and Canadians on why menstrual equity is a human rights issue. And so with all of these kind of pressure points and why it's just so important to acknowledge menstrual equity, in Canada in 2022, obviously why we're here today, the federal government announced the Menstrual Equity Fund. So 25 million being distributed, which we now know is going to Food Banks Canada to increase accessibility of period products as well as education. And then, of course, rolling out free menstrual products in all federally regulated workspaces, which is why we're here. And so to kind of add on to that, that's a little bit of the context in a nutshell, but obviously people have been advocating for this for years and years and years. But why is this regulation so important? So really quickly, I think we should take a step back. And if menstrual equity or all of this talk about free menstrual products is something new to you, I think it's really important to really just chat really quickly about what menstrual equity is. So there are many different definitions, but it really broadly refers to the affordability, accessibility, and the safety of menstrual products. So we cannot achieve menstrual equity in Canada, North America, all around the world without discussing gender equity and reproductive care. So that's really important to discuss. And it's about making sure that people have the needs, the support, and the choices to decide how they would like to take care of their menstrual health. And accessibility and education are a big part of this, which is why a lot of us advocates continue to push for not only accessibility, but also education as well. And so just like toilet paper, and you'll hear that a lot because it's just the best way to describe it. I see Claire smiling because it's a necessity item, just like toilet paper. It's imperative for public washrooms to provide free menstrual products because up until now, menstruators or those who menstruate have just had to figure it out. And it can be up to, $8,000 a year Canadian that only a menstruator or their caretaker has to see this cost and not people who do not menstruate. So, and don't forget, everyone's cycle is a little bit different. So that cost can vary depending on their cycle and the products they use. So from an equity lens, my last piece, but kind of before I just go into a couple key things to keep in mind as you roll this out in your companies. From an equity lens, if people who menstruate don't have access to menstrual products, so maybe they cannot afford them, maybe they're unprepared for their period that day at work, for whatever reason, they don't have supplies with them and they get their period, they'll have to miss school or work or use, unsafe alternatives. And the stark reality is, many people I'll use an example that's quite relatable, Tim Hortons wrappers as pads. We see this in every community across Canada and across North America. This is not just a Canada problem. This is a global problem. And so again, this only affects those who menstruate. So this is a biological issue, that happens to over 50% of Canadians. So this is something we really need to take seriously. So a few key takeaways for you as you roll out these initiatives in your workplace. Number one, language is super important. So not just women menstruate, non-binary folks, trans folks, two-spirit people also menstruate as well. So this is why, kind of coming back full circle to why it's important to provide tampons and pads in all washrooms, not just women's washrooms. And so as Krista said, so men's washroom, women's washrooms, family washrooms, gender neutral washrooms, however you have obviously they're set up in your workplace. Only providing product in the women's washroom is not inclusive and can actually lead to a very harmful and potentially unsafe situation for menstruators who do not use the women's washroom. So I think that's one really big takeaway. And of course, again, open to answering any questions and kind of clarification at the end, because language is just really important and understanding the inclusivity. Another key thing here is the biggest feedback, and I think Claire will agree with this one of our biggest feedbacks for initiatives and implementations is, but people are going to steal all of the product. And so this is something I really want to address off the bat, because first of all, we don't say this with toilet paper, and this also exists with toilet paper, this mentality. However, will they steal the products? The answer is yes and no. So first of all, every pilot project I've been a part of, there's always initial increased product use when you first provide products in a washroom, because obviously they're there and they're useful and they're needed and they're necessary items. But then in every pilot project I've been a part of, we see that it tapers down and it just becomes a very consistent use. Because again, it's something that is, necessary, and it's an equitable and safe solution for your employees. But if initially you are seeing, product kind of going off in the washrooms off the shelves, that means that this has been an issue for your workplace and your employees for a long time, and they're being used. And that to me is a great sign. And that's something that, we should all be really proud of, that we're able to provide. Lastly, I just want to address kind of the most important point when rolling out these initiatives, is, menstrual inequities disproportionately impact Indigenous people, people of color, as well as trans and non-binary individuals, and those with disabilities. So these folks need to be at the forefront of all decisions in terms of accessibility and considerations when you are discussing and putting together your menstrual equity initiatives, or how this is going to roll out or what this looks like. And so I think that's something I really wanted to mention. And again, any questions, let me know, but that is kind of honestly the most important piece of how we roll this out in any workplace environment or at school. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about at the end. I'm going to pass it over to Claire now, and I will go through your slides for you, Claire. I'll try to keep up with you.
Amazing. Well, Rachel, thank you for the overview and the incredible advocacy. So now that this is a part of the labor code, all federally regulated buildings need to implement a period program by December 15th, which can be very daunting, but we are here to help. And we're going to share with you some of the key considerations for when you're implementing your period program. Before we move to the next slide, I'll share a little bit of background on AntFlow and our partnership with Citron. As mentioned, we've been in business for 8 years. We've been installing dispensers in over 38,000 washrooms across North America and the United Kingdom. And we have been partners with Citron for Canada for a few years now. And we have been installing these thoughtful programs with Scotiabank, Royal Bank of Canada, and so many other leaders to make sure that they are in compliance by December 15th. So let's talk about some key considerations for those that are impacted by the federal labor code. We can go to the next slide. If you are responsible for determining how to figure out a period product program, here are some things that you might have already been talking about with your teams. The first one is supply. You may have read about this in the news, but Tampax has faced national shortages for months, if not years. And it is important and critical to ask your suppliers questions on, one, historical outages. Have they ever faced outages? Have they ever faced shortages? Their dispenser availability. As we are placing thousands of dispensers, it is important for you to understand, when can you get dispensers? How quickly are they available? And then, of course, how organizations plan inventory moving forward. AntFlow specifically is proud to have never experienced a shortage. The reason for this is we control our supply chain because we make dispensers and period products. It's important to note that Tampax just is one supplier, but they sell to many distributors. Whereas in Canada, AntFlow exclusively sells through Citron, which allows us to know precisely future order flows based on historical data. So that's the first one. Take into consideration, ask your suppliers, Citron included, what is the historical outages, what is the dispenser availability, and how do suppliers plan inventory moving forward? The next key consideration is quality. As you might know, tampons and pads are hanging out near very important parts of people's bodies, and they are regulated by Health Canada. Therefore, quality matters. Ask your suppliers, what are the ingredients in the period products? How are your period products sustainable for the environment? And are there any give back programs? AntFlow is proud to have a very clean and concise ingredient list that is organic cotton. We are clear with our ingredients, and we also encourage you to ask your alternative suppliers, if you're considering anyone else, what are their ingredients? What is the quality? How are they thoughtfully considering sustainability? And another key consideration is dispensers. Dispensers can make or break a program. And by break a program, I mean, are the dispensers going to break? It is important to ask your suppliers, how have dispensers been tested? How long are they anticipated to last? How frequently do you need to reload the dispensers? And also, do I need dispensers? We do recommend dispensers for almost all programs. The reason for this is baskets. If you just put a basket of tampons and pads out, it can get knocked over. It can be easily lifted up and walked away with a patron. They can be splashed with water. Dispensers can really make sure that the program is long-lasting and efficient. At AntFlow, we can go to the next slide. We'll share a little bit about our dispensers and our period products. So AntFlow has 4 dispensers, model PERO. You can tell we're spelling out period. We have some more innovations coming. Our most popular dispenser that we sell is the Model E dispenser. It is a wall-mounted unit that is made from ABS plastic, and it holds 50 tampons and 50 pads. This dispenser is stocked in over 750 schools across the United States, and 1.6 million menstruators in the United States rely on AntFlow organic cotton period products out of that Model E dispenser. Another dispenser that has been elected by a variety of financial institutions are our stainless steel options, which you can see on the Model R and the Model O. You can go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about our period products. Oh, and by the way, our dispensers are life cycle tested for 10 years. You press the button, you get a period product. We're also proud that our dispensers do include Braille, as well as a variety of languages to ensure inclusivity for all. Our tampons and pads are comfortable. Although our period products have no single-use plastic, which is really positive for the environment, the number one question from menstruators is, does that mean that the tampon is not comfortable? Our tampons have a smooth tip on the applicator, and for folks that don't menstruate, stick with me here. This is really important for you as well to understand. The smooth tip applicator really makes sure that it's comfortable for insertion, and then the pads have wings, which makes sure that the pad is secure and comfortable. The pads have a 100% organic cotton top sheet, and the tampons are 100% organic cotton as well. So once again, when you're considering a supplier, those that single-use plastic is really important to consider as you are thinking about your sustainability initiatives, as well as the quality of the period care. Last but not least, thinking a little bit about greater impact. At AntFlow, we are proud to be a certified woman-owned business. All of our consumables, our tampons and plaids, are single-use plastic-free, and we are consistently making sustainable steps for packaging. We have donated over 5 million organic cotton period products since 2021. You can see on the left here the CEO of Citron Hygiene making a donation to NWAC, as Rachel mentioned. Indigenous populations in Canada are some of the most that are impacted by accessible period care or lack of access to period care. And so as a part of our mission at AntFlow and in partnership with Citron, not only are we ensuring that your organizations are thoughtfully stocked and compliant with the Federal Labor Code, we are also giving back to support those Indigenous communities. Our products are OCS and GOTS certified with organic cotton. Once again, ingredients matter. And our dispensers are tried and true when stocked in over 38,000 bathrooms, ranging from marquee folks, as mentioned, in Canada, like Scotiabank, Royal Bank of Canada, also every Apple retail store across North America, and 750 schools across North America as well. So that is a bit of an overview on how to think about your period care, the dispensing of tampons and pads, but that's not the only part of this program. There's also required for disposal of period care for your full period care system. So I'll stop now and pass it back to Krista to take on the next phase.
Thank you, Claire. I'm sorry for the technical glitch, everyone. I think I finally got the chat and the Q&A working. So any questions you have, I see some rolling in now. Please feel free to either put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll address them. I'll be done shortly because I don't think I'll take more than 5 minutes with the disposal piece. So disposal, menstrual hygiene disposal, why does it matter? I think in North America, we are all very used to the metal wall box that you have to manually touch and open to dispose of your period products in a very small, often scrunched up, overflowing paper bag. It's not a very nice experience. You can ask any menstruator who's ever had to do it. They're usually rusty. They're usually they feel quite dirty. And so here at Citron Hygiene, we pride ourselves and have made a business essentially out of hygienic, touch-free menstrual hygiene waste disposal. So you've probably seen our bins in a lot of different places. Particularly if you're in the Toronto area, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. We have 2 different types of bins, floor-mounted or wall-mounted, and they're large and they're either foot pedal activated or battery infrared sensor activated. So all you have to do is wave your hand and it opens up so that you don't actually have to come into contact with these bins. Often these bins are left they're not like emptied. They're usually emptied every 2 to 4 weeks in sort of a moderate foot traffic setting. So the waste is kind of sitting there for a while. And when you're talking about bloodborne waste, that can come with a lot of concerns about pathogens. And so we at Citron Hygiene have a proprietary treatment that we use that sits in the bin, the lined bin, to treat the waste throughout that time to deal with any pathogens, airborne pathogens, and odors that happen. So when the Labor Code requires covered menstrual hygiene disposal bins, I think that is to address what is often a garbage can that's just sort of sitting in the middle of a washroom, so that to reduce labor for custodial staff. Often, I think, having a bin in every toilet stall does feel very laborious. And that's something that some organizations are willing to insource and hire more people or add more hours in order to address that internally. When people come to Citron Hygiene, it's because they want to outsource those services along with the stocking and management of the free vend period product programs. So our expertise is in setting how frequently service needs to happen, ensuring everything works, ensuring it's sanitized on a regular maintenance schedule. And it means that you don't have to add extra hours or custodial staff to manage that. It also means that you get the expertise of people who are trained with managing that waste, because often what you'll see is needle waste being discarded in these bins. We've certainly heard of incidents where people have been, unfortunately, been pricked by needle waste when sharps are inappropriately disposed of in certain bins that are provided. So our staff are all expertly trained in how to safely manage all of this waste and ensure that everything is working. We replace everything from replacing batteries to sanitizing to adequately disposing of waste. We also manage the waste and as sustainably as possible. So in certain areas, we have waste management partners that help us deal with things more sustainably than simply just landfilling, which certainly does still happen, but the option isn't always available. So if you are talking to someone at Citron Hygiene, you can talk to your rep about what that means in your local municipality. And we certainly are, as Claire said about her packaging, always working toward more sustainable options. We are always working towards more sustainable options as well. Just because a sustainable option doesn't exist now in a certain municipality doesn't mean that it won't in the future. It often comes down to availability. So when they say a bin in every single toilet stall, and you're probably wondering, well, why do I need menstrual hygiene waste disposal bins in men's washrooms? I think going back to what Rachel said about not everyone who menstruates is a woman, some are non-binary to spirit transgender. It also can come down to incontinence waste as well, though. One thing that, there are a lot of health issues that men are affected by that require incontinence products. And certainly it's a dignity, it's an experience of like dignity to be able to have an install disposal solution there. So we're not just talking about menstrual hygiene waste here, we're talking about absorbency product waste disposal, which allows people to have like an inclusive, dignified experience. So if you think about it that way, it also makes a lot of sense that the government has opted to include this in the labor code. I think the most important takeaway is that the touch-free option really is the best option. I know there are certain options out there that are offered by other companies or that you just purchase and in-source that are not touch-free, but it really is such an important part of the experience for washroom users and for even just reducing the spread of illness in the workplace. So if you have any questions about disposal, please put that in the chat. As far as calculating what you need, you really just need as many disposal options as you have toilets on your premises. So with that, let's look at some of the questions. Sorry, everyone. The interface is kind of all over the place. So let me go back, scroll back up. Okay. So we have a question. You mentioned federally regulated buildings. Does this mean that we have to provide the products to tenants of our building or just our employees? Rachel, I'm not sure if I have an idea of this, and now I'm not a legal expert or a labor code expert, but if your tenant is a federally regulated business, then I think you need to engage with your tenant about whether they expect that to be set up and provided by you, or if they're going to manage that themselves. I think it kind of depends on your agreement. We've certainly been dealing with property management companies that are doing it that are sort of setting up and purchasing on behalf of federally regulated clients. But I think if you're a landlord, that's not always the case. And I think you just have to engage with your federally regulated tenant to figure that out. If you are federally regulated and you have tenants, I think if it's your business that is federally regulated, then you need to do it for the employees of your federally regulated organization. If your tenants are not federally regulated, then there is no requirement as it pertains to the labor code. But I think that it can't hurt to continue looking into this for your tenants. I think it probably would give you a competitive edge above other landlords or property management companies. Okay, next question. Could you provide the proof that Amflow menstrual products received Health Canada approval? Claire, yes, we can.
Yes, responded in the chat. Amflow is registered through Health Canada, and in the event that you need our specific license, please reach out to Citron and we can share our MDEL.
Yes, we have it on file. I'm happy to send it out in the post email as well. But also if you are dealing with a sales representative from Citron Hygiene, you can also ask them to do that, and I'll certainly make that available. You can also typically look up licenses. I believe there's I can't remember the name of the database, but you can also look them up, but I'm happy to send that out. Will the slide deck be provided to attendees? Yes, the recording will be available, and I'm happy to send out the slide deck as well. We also have different, we have a guide about rolling out a period product program that we'll send out after. And any other information you need, you can find on our website or just contact us to ask for it directly. Claire has to hop off, so thank you so much to Claire. So there are some other questions that I thought people might be interested to learn more about. So I think that one question that I've heard a lot is, if we just have, a lot of people are confused about providing period products in men's washrooms. And I think that's fine. I understand, because a lot of people haven't really thought about that before. You don't necessarily have to provide a high volume dispenser in washrooms. I think, certainly at Citron Hygiene, we've made a small dispenser that's ideal for men's washrooms and we call it the Citron Simple, and it's sort of a small gravity fed dispenser. But I think the important thing is I've also heard a lot, can we just add it in a basket? And Rachel, you've probably heard about this too. Like, can I just add it in a basket? I think baskets it's better than nothing for sure. But I think that you do get into issues with water damage of products. It's not always a very hygienic solution. There's like splashing, there's not always a lot of counter space, there's not always a good spot to put it. So certainly having a wall-mounted dispenser is ideal for protecting like the hygienic integrity of period products. If a basket is really all you can do, I think that's certainly better than nothing. But I do think that if you look at sort of a wall-mounted, like the Citron Simple, for example, which essentially is just like, when you go to a hotel and there's like the tea dispenser and you get your tea bags out and it's just gravity fed, it basically just functions like that, but for pads and tampons. So there's always solutions like that so that you don't have to have a full large solution in men's washrooms. And then certainly it works well in smaller washrooms too, where you just don't have a lot of space, because obviously we have AODA requirements and accessibility requirements that have to follow in washrooms for space and height and things like that. And yes, Rachel answered this. I believe the tampon is regulated as a medical device, but not pad. Yes, and that is correct, because medical devices go into the body and pads do not go into the body, so they're not a device. Can you put a picture and price for the Citron Simple in the chat? Yes, actually, we added it to our website. The price does vary based on volume. So I cannot give you the price right now. But it also depends. So if you go to this webpage, you can see our menstrual waste disposal solutions as well as our vending solutions. So we have the Ant Flow and Citron Simple. We have a product called the Evogen on our website, but we actually only sell that in the US. So the Citron Simple is, if you scroll down, you'll find it. If you purchase the Citron Simple outright, it's one price. If you decide to get it on full service, it's another price. So I would say just fill out the form on our website or email me after the chat. It's kplewis@citronhygiene.com. I can put that here. And we can get you pricing depending on your needs, because it does depend on the situation. Rachel, is there anything else that you can think of that people need to know about the requirements, or just things to be aware of? I know you had a pretty solid check that you wanted to expand on? Because we've got
Yeah, I think I could just, Krista, you answered the question really well. I think any kind of hesitation or uncertainty around providing products, and again, I'll say a men's washroom. I know there's different setups, again, family washrooms, gender neutral washrooms. I'm obviously a cis white woman, so I'm going to speak on behalf of folks in the space that are queer. It's so important to provide menstrual products in the men's washroom or not just in the women's washroom. It's honestly, and it's been, I will quote a good friend of mine that said this in this space, that it's actually suicide prevention by providing products in a washroom other than just women's, for notably several reasons. But if someone who menstruates and uses the men's washroom, if they don't have access to that product in that washroom, I mean, that is, first of all, an issue. Like they're having to go home or going to the store to get products, or, maybe in the way it's set up, not comfortable using, you know what I mean? Going into the women's washroom to get those products and then going into the men's washroom to use the washroom. And so there can be a lot of like harmful pieces to that if they're going into a washroom that they feel comfortable using, but then don't have access to certain products. And then notably having proper disposal of that, where they don't have to carry, the product after it's been used, and whatnot to different places around their workplace. That's just, that's obviously there's still stigma that exists and there's embarrassment there. And there's already so many layers to someone who may not identify as a woman who menstruates. So I think that would be something, just, again, happy to answer my questions, or after reach out to me, no problem. We can have a conversation about it. Cause I think it's something new that a lot of folks haven't thought about, but it's so important. And I think the other piece I'll add really quickly is just that sometimes gender neutral washrooms can provide products, and that is amazing. But if they're 30 minutes away from, they're not accessible in terms of actually like time and distance. That's something that my queer friends have brought up to me that I had never thought about, where there's one gender neutral washroom on the work campus that's, an hour walking distance from everything else, compared to the other more accessible washrooms. So I think that's something to note too, that we have to kind of, keep all of these things in mind when rolling out these initiatives. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. It's about, having accessibility and a dignified experience for all. And I think that, washroom standards isn't something that we've all spent a lot of time thinking about. So this is a piece of that. It affects how people spend their day in the workplace. And it is an equity issue, because if you can't find what you need, ultimately you're just going to leave, and it increases absenteeism, right? So we have a question about penalties. So any knowledge of potential penalties should a federally regulated company not be in compliance by December 15th? Any grace period for a company with a large portfolio, i.e. over 3,000 buildings? So that is a very large footprint. And I think, to be honest, Susan, from what I'm seeing, I think that there will be a pretty significant number of organizations that are not compliant by December 15th. And I think a lot of that is owed to the ongoing supply chain issues that have persisted throughout the pandemic up to now. So I think that it would be unreasonable for there to be penalties, in my opinion, but I can't speak to that because I'm not in touch with the federal government or Seamus O'Regan about that. But I do think that a grace period should be given. And certainly we are working extremely hard to have all of our customers compliant before the end of the year. I think, what are the penalties? To be honest, I looked up the matrix about the fines. I tried to figure out what the fines would be, but it's dependent on so many variables that it's difficult to calculate and gauge. But ultimately it does come down to a fine. And I believe those fines are dependent on the type of infraction and, the size of the organization. So I think that as long as, you show, I don't think they're going to send auditors around on December 16th to check compliance. But certainly if you talk to us, we will do everything we can to help your organization become compliant as soon as possible. We've done a lot of work to secure inventory, and our operations team is constantly working on optimizing how we do installs and allocate product. And, because we work so closely with AntFlow, we actually have supply, where we're hearing that others are having trouble getting supply. And I've heard from one person that there's a delay of 18 weeks until shipment for pads and tampons for one organization, which is a very long time. So by all means, email me, put your name into our form, and we'll get you set up with someone for a chat, and we can figure out what we can do to get you set up as quickly as possible. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything that's unclear? Okay, what else? Oh, I had one other question I thought was interesting. It's about refilling and usage. So, oh, Monruthai, no problem. Thank you so much for joining us. We were really excited to do this, and it's really amazing how many people have joined, because it is kind of new territory for everyone. So we're so happy to help people figure this all out. At Citron Hygiene, we're pretty well versed in usage rates. Rachel said before that usage rates in pilot projects that she's run, they kind of spike and then plateau out. Claire, I can speak for Claire on this one. She's done a lot of she's tracked this at a lot of her sites. The same thing happens with in that case. And I think the phenomenon that we're seeing is that it's a new resource. People don't know how long it's going to be there for, so they kind of like maybe just take things. Sometimes you just don't understand how much people actually need it. So any usage seems like a lot because it's unprecedented in your organization. But as it becomes a resource that people can rely on, you will see people not taking product and stocking up. We did a study back in February, and we asked 3,000 menstruators across the US and Canada, if you had access to free period products, how would you use them? And we gave them a multiple choice. Would you just take what you needed in that moment? Would you take what you needed for the day, for the week, or for more than just this period? 2% of people said they would take more than they needed for just this period. I think that can reasonably be connected to the people who really desperately need more than just for that period. 6% of people said they would stock up for the rest of the period. And the rest of the people said, I would just take what I needed right then, or I would take what I needed for the rest of the day. That's actually not a lot. That's just like 1 to 3 period products. So I think you can expect that when you start this program, and we've certainly seen this at some Ontario colleges that we've implemented, it will seem like a lot at first. It will also probably level out, plateau, and it'll be very predictable. If your unit is emptied, you will have to, the best practice is to dedicate someone to going around to check and making sure that they're refilled. If you have a full service program with us, for example, we get calls all the time to say, we've had an event or we've had like a summer program running at our college that we didn't higher usage rates than normal, than predicted. Can you come out and refill, tomorrow, or can we increase our service frequency for the next month? We work with our customers very closely to make that happen so that everything is always stocked. We have our operations team has a point of contact at every organization to make sure that everyone's needs are being met. And so you just have to decide insourcing versus outsourcing. Can you manage that internally and allocate that labor to someone internally, or hire someone internally to sort of take on that extra workload and management, including inventory management and purchasing? Or do we outsource to a company that specializes in that? That's what we do. We think that everyone who is participating in free vend and like period dignity washrooms with menstrual waste disposal is doing a fantastic job. Like the intention is good, and everyone's just doing the best they can, and we think that's amazing. If you want to outsource that and get our help, this is our expertise. We've been doing this since the 50s. We've got it down to a science. So let us know if you want more information. Anything to add, Rachel? I feel like I'm just rambling now, but we're right at the end.
No, that was great. As an advocate, I'm so excited to see this happen. And we really hope that this will be a domino effect as well from mandating obviously federally regulated workplaces and then other, you know, private sector companies jumping on board. So we're really excited. So thank you to everyone on this call and for implementing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today, Rachel. And thank you to Claire Coder. Even though she's not here, I'll send her a thank you after. I put everyone's contact information in the, I think it's on the registration page. You can find the Instagram and Facebook handles, LinkedIn profiles. I put my email in the chat. You're certainly welcome to email me. If you'd like to talk to one of our sales reps, you can go to our website and fill out a form, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And just thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'll send out as much information as I can in a follow-up email in the next couple of days. And have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks, Rachel. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.